If you ask the average young person in Malaysia about politics, you're more likely than not to get a blank expression. I know this because I work with a lot of students from my English classes and college consultations, and as far as they're concerned, a government basically is just pie in the sky thing that doesn't affect their lives, doesn't affect anything about how they live in this world. The problem is though, it's not just kids. A lot of Malaysians, amongst my friends, relatives, people that I've seen of every single color and shade out there, people just kind of disconnect from what they see in the media, the news,
which is a little bit worrying.
So poops, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that I'm not talking about you.
But
I think it's worthwhile to try to understand. So yeah, let's go. Reason number 1. Politics in Malaysia sucks. Even right now, it doesn't really matter whether it's Madani or Perikatan because both are bad in their own ways. You have corruption from 1MDB and DNAAs, but then you also have Jana Wibawa and 90 million. You probably saw the pecaturan with the PKR deputy president elections, but then you would have to be selectively blind to not see the Muhyiddin and Hamzah pecaturan where people are literally calling the police and people are signing declarations saying that their prime minister candidate cannot be their prime minister candidate even as they fight with one another, party against party across the coalition. You can talk about how judicial independence disappeared under Madani, but did you see how PN's office disappeared? You want to talk about Yusof rather, but what about the fact that PN reps are trying to rename flowers? One could be arguably worse than the other, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point is, here we are with all of these horrible leaders regardless of the side that we're on. From race baiting to race baiting, people screaming about agama dan bangsa. I'm not surprised if people look at it as a TV show and then they just tune out and change channel. Politics is entertaining precisely because it is so chaotic and it's because it is so messed up.
which leads to political fatigue though.
I mean, it makes for a much more interesting story than Singapore, but frankly, in Malaysia, throughout the years, I think that we've been shortchange after shortchange. If interesting means listening to idiot statement after idiot statement from leaders I have no respect for while reading corruption scandals in the newspaper, I think I can live without that. Which then leads to reason number 2, a sense of helplessness. It always comes out the same way. Yeah, you cannot do anything anyway, so why you go and talk so much for? You write whatever, you comment whatever also, it's not going to make a difference, so why you go and yaya papaya so much? Let them destroy themselves. But also with a nice dose of reason number 3, self-policing, which goes like, hey, you better don't talk otherwise later the po the MC come and catch you, 一两丢路了 then you will 惨了咯. You don't talk so much, just make your money and go. And so here we are, a society with bad politics, a sense of helplessness, and self-policing whereby Malaysians somehow feel that they can't say anything and won't say anything, and therefore leave Malaysia in this self-reinforcing cycle of mediocrity. I'm sure that there are many of you out there who are watching right now who do care about Malaysia, who do care about politics. But you can't deny that there are a lot of people who actually think this way in our country. I know a lot of you will say that you want to boycott elections, can't trust Anwar, can't trust PN, nobody to trust, migrate je lah. And to those people I say, I understand how you feel, I used to feel that way as well. But honestly, how many politicians can you boycott? There's only a limited number of them. And then not everybody can migrate. So if you can't migrate, then what are you going to do? Are you going to just like sit there helplessly, complain day after day while your neighbors move forward? I don't know, that just seems really sad to me. No offense, it's really pathetic. See, at the end of the day, right, by the law of the land, every 5 years, you are going to get a leader. You might not believe in a leader, you might not trust in anything that they are saying because you think that they are ketimbang, kencing, untrustworthy. But the fact is, you are going to get a leader by the constitutional process, the elections that we have, the next one of which is coming up in about 2 years' time. So the question is not, can we just not have leaders? Instead, it's more of like, you're going to get bad leaders or good leaders. Which ones do you pick?
Or create, for that matter.
Which is why I'm going to respond to every single one of the points that I just mentioned. Let's start with bad politics. Yeah, sure, maybe you think that the politics in this country sucks, we don't have any good leaders, there's no point. But I guess the real question is, what are you doing about it? Are you actually holding people to account and then calling them out for their bad behavior when they are supposed to serve you, the rakyat? Or are you actually stepping up, right, when you feel that something is wrong and you realize that you need to actually try to do something because you believe in yourself and you believe what you are doing is right? Cause see, right, to some extent, like, You can talk a lot, right? But if you don't actually end up doing anything, persuading people, or bringing people into your way of thinking, right, then you really cannot blame anybody except yourself if everything falls apart. Like, that's just the way it is. Next, helplessness. I think in Malaysia, we are a very divided community. The news is in different languages, people are split up across different ecosystems, depending on whether they read Malay news, Chinese news, Tamil news, or English news. And a lot of times we just don't agree on things, right? But to say that we aren't actually making progress in some small ways, or that it's impossible for you to actually make progress as an internet user is, I think, incorrect. I know a lot of y'all think that you are helpless, but the fact is that Malaysians actually have gone against our government. We have mounted opposition, we have done so peacefully, and sometimes it's actually led to change. Sure, maybe Himpunan Turun Anwar didn't bring down Anwar Ibrahim, but we saw how protests and petitions against the DNS redirect policy of MCMC actually led to the government changing the policy, saying, sorry, we're not going to do it.
Today's the 1-year anniversary, by the way.
It doesn't happen everywhere, right? But you can't deny that things like these do exist, and people actually have a small role, right, in making a difference. I'm not saying it's easy, because it really is not. And this brings me to self-policing. So many of y'all, right, you think that it's useless or you were gonna tangkap by MCMC, right, that you choose not to speak up. When in reality, right, if you look at me, you can say cable lah, he knows the minister lah, or any other thing like that, right? But frankly, there's no reason why you can't be in that position, why you can't be speaking out, why you can't be going out and then trying to make a difference and then forming these connections along the way. Sure, it's not necessarily going to make you a ton of money, but then I think being able to control your living environment, right, isn't something that you can just measure in dollars and cents. It's all about taking that agency for yourself and understanding, right, that as a citizen, you have a right to shape the way that things go, to express things to your leaders, and to criticize what's not working well so that we can actually aim for something that's better. Maybe you don't believe me 100% right here, but I will just say this lah, right? You can say a lot more than you think that you actually can right now, as long as you're honest, as long as you don't slander, as long as you really think about what you're actually saying, and you come from a place of understanding. Again, I'm gonna say it's not easy. It really is not easy. But as Lao Tzu once said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I'm not asking you to go out there and make videos like these. Although sure, it's great if you feel that it's important to do so, and you feel that there's something that you have to say that's important for society. But even if you can't do that, there's nothing stopping you from commenting that one comment as a show of support, liking that one post, or subscribing to somebody who is saying the things that you believe in. And nobody is stopping you from going out there and saying, that's not okay, I don't agree with that, I cannot accept that if you see something that you cannot abide in our society. Because that is your right as a citizen, and that's something that you should be able to do, rather than just saying that you should ignore people who are being needlessly offensive and they feel the entitlement to silence you whenever you have a legitimate expectation from your fellow countrymen. As a single country under this jalur gemilang right here, we rise and we fall together. That is our interconnected story that spans race and religion. And I think that in Malaysia, it's become too easy for us to be complacent in building up this nation. We avoid hard conversations, we don't talk to one another, we prefer either bullying one another into submission or just noping out of the conversation. That is not how we build a healthy society, how we create a community in these small ways before we even think about all those grand delusions, sorry to say, of keluarga Malaysia, bersaing pada persada antara bangsa and everything out there. Because if you can't do all these small things while speaking truth to power, you can't really expect this society, whatever politicians there are, whatever leaders there may be, to actually become a successful society. And when that time comes and you can't actually have a conversation with your fellow Malaysians, well, then it's your own fault, as it always was even before you became a leader, that this country is not moving forward. And with this, I'll close. I know that a lot of y'all out there are disillusioned about Malaysian politics, and probably for good reason. Some of you are planning to migrate, I know a lot of you already have. But I think for those of you out there who care about what Malaysia is and what it can be, and for some reason or another, whether you are forced to or it's by choice, you live under the Malaysian flag, right? I want to encourage you to remember the words of the late JFK. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Sure, it's cliche, you have your own things to handle, but if you were touched here and today, I invite you to explore what that means for yourself. And however that's expressed, whether you're selling pasembur, or running super fast, or winning badminton championships for this country, for that matter. Well, have fun thinking about that, and thank you for listening. That's all to say about that, and bye.